All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Mark Miller. I am the Vice President for iCar Technical Operations and OEM Segment Sales. Here today on the Refinish and Collision stage to talk about the evolution of Estimatics to repair planning. So we have a lot of distinguished guests here today. So I'll go from left to my left and then have you introduce yourself, please.
I'm Kyle Bradshaw. I'm with K&M Collision in Hickory, North Carolina.
John Melendez with JDM Collision out of the south side of Chicago.
Taylor Moss with Quality Collision Group.
George Verkamp, I'm Senior Vice President at ALLDATA.
All right, well, thank you, everybody, and thanks for your participation today. Really appreciate it. We're going to dive right into the Q&A and the question and answering around repair planning. I'm going to start with you, Kyle. Okay. So what are the key differences between Estimatics and repair planning from your perspective, and why does it matter?
Yeah, so really the way that we explain it at our shop is an estimate is just a guess. You're not using any sort of resources or anything like that. You're really taking a quick visual look at something. And this is something we transitioned away from probably about 7 or 8 years ago. So we don't do estimating anymore at our facility. And then as far as a blueprint, it is a really detailed, thorough analysis of the vehicle, the systems the vehicle has, including the build data, and then also utilizing the OEM information to perform a comprehensive blueprint. I think the importance for us is really the repair process is only as good as the blueprint. And so for us, if we're doing the job the right way on the front end from a blueprinting standpoint, it really sets the stage for the way that the vehicle is going to be processed really from start to finish. And we feel like if we nail that part, the rest is going to be super simple for us.
All right, great. George, I'm going to do a follow-on question, kind of the same area. What do you think are the biggest challenges for the shops around adopting, very definitive repair planning?
Well, I think what we see, quite frankly, is maybe the biggest hurdle is just change management, quite frankly, right? It's hard to go through that change. A lot of shops have been doing things the same way for a long, long time. So just trying to adopt that philosophy of going through that repair plan up front versus simply just diving into the estimate. And you need the team behind you, depending on what your role is, to really lean into that change, right? So if you don't get that adoption or that buy-in from the team, you're going to struggle putting those processes together, right? I think skill set matters. Got to have the right people in the right roles, and if you don't have that, again, you're going to struggle. So I think you kind of need to look at that from a team perspective. Clearly, technology tools are a big piece of the puzzle as well, and your team's going to struggle if you're not putting the right tools in place for them. Obviously, OEM procedures, right, are the foundation of that. Making sure that those are complete, making sure that they're readily available, particularly in an all makes, all models type of environment. Mm-hmm. If you don't, the process is going to break down. So I think those are some of the things that we take a look at. Obviously, space and layout. Right. Making sure that you've got the right space and to put each stage of the process from blueprinting to parts, the whole 9 yards. So I think if you kind of go down that list and you nail those, you're probably going to put a pretty good process in place.
Good. All right. Thank you, George. Hey, Taylor, I'm going to turn it over to you, and it's kind of like around the same lines is, from your perspective, your experience, are we limited, or who should be doing the actual research during the repair planning?
Yeah, that's a great question. And as you look at the repair planning process, I think it might not be the same person that's traditionally been the estimator role, right? Because the estimator role, this person is very segmented into what they think they know and how they're doing their work today, right? And as George mentioned, change is very challenging, right? To get someone to go, say, I know your job used to be XYZ, it's now going to be ABC. That is very, very challenging, right? Because they have however many years of history telling them what they need to do. So I was with Repair Logic. I was one of the founders at Repair Logic. One of the things we saw that was really fascinating to us, we did a bunch of research on people researching repair procedures and who was most successful with that, right? With Repair Logic, we tried to make it really easy and fast and quick because we knew, people aren't going to want to add time to their day of writing an estimate when looking up repair procedures for everything. So we actually found data with 2 sizable MSOs that taking people that had never been in the industry before were writing better and more complete repair plans and thus estimates that were 0 to 1 years in the industry rather than people that had been around their whole lifetime. Because of the speed of technology change and the need to really look up procedures every single repair, and not just look up the structural procedures, but to actually look up all of the moldings and all of the different R&I panels and all the different ADAS features and things. There's tons of R&I operations that just get missed or skipped or not billed and completed, and there's tons of ADAS calibrations that might get missed. There's one-time use parts that might get missed. There's a tremendous amount of data these files are rich with in the OEM procedures, and it becomes critical. So I think you almost need to maybe think about it from a different person that's been traditionally doing that. Even training up people from scratch can be more efficient and more effective than trying to teach an old dog new tricks.
All right. Well, thanks, Taylor. John, we haven't forgot about you. Over to you. How does repair planning impact cycle time, supplements, technician efficiencies in your shop, and what do you believe?
Give you a quick example as a team concept on what we do and how we identify the damage that's on the vehicle. Compared to what we did in the past to today, we've increased 30% by doing a repair plan, securing the job, identifying all the parts, putting a process together, employ the parts just in time before we actually have that car in process so we're not delayed. Yeah. So by doing it as a team, we are putting it together and setting up our own schedule within our own parameters and our abilities, and of course without any part restrictions, to have that process go so much smoother. And we do it as a team, I emphasize that. From identifying the alignments, to identifying the damage, to identifying the structure. We go through a complete process, 3D CAD measurement. We make sure we have the insurance involved at the same time so there's no uncertainties. And once the parts are secured, then it goes in process. We're a smaller facility, so we found out by having a complete, strong process gives us the ability to go ahead and put out a good quality product within a reasonable time frame.
Okay, great. I guess, Kyle, kind of along the same lines, what challenges do you see about implementing repair planning?
Well, I think a lot of these guys hit on it already, but the reluctant to change, being reluctant to change, that's what I see across the industry is really the challenge. I think once you decide to kind of jump into the pool, so to speak, and do it, I think it's one of those deals where you almost look back and why didn't I do this 10 years ago? Just what John was explaining as far as efficiencies and things like that. There's so many things that you truly cannot control throughout the repair process as a collision repair. And so we're really big on controlling what you can control. And so we feel like by implementing some of these processes and putting them in place, it really gives us a leg up. And so a lot of the vehicles that we work on are more of like the higher end luxury vehicles. So parts delays are certainly a challenge for us. There are things that are shipping overseas. And so one molding or trim piece or something like that may seem small or insignificant, that can delay a car going home by 2 or 3 weeks sometimes, right? And that might be a best case scenario. So we feel like, if we nail this on the front end, it's going to really create some efficiencies. And so I think the biggest thing is just really getting out of your own way from a mental standpoint. They've talked about it. Doing things the way that you've always done it is the worst saying ever. I hate that. And for our team and our culture, we're all about continuous improvement. And so there's a lot of times where there's something that's not necessarily broke, but we're going to tear it down just to see if we can make it, a little bit better along the way anyways.
I mean, I would have one word for that, and that sounds like ownership, quite honestly. Yeah. So
extreme ownership.
Extreme ownership. Jocko Willink, if everybody knows that. Just a little plug there. So down to you, George. Really from your perspective, for the shops, what kind of investments do you think need to happen in the technology space?
Well, I think Taylor mentioned a little bit in terms of just staffing, first and foremost. But before we get into any of the technology tools that the team might use, you know, you've got a technician that you've got to train, right? And with training comes investment, you know, time, energy, all of those sort of things. Technician that can tear the vehicle apart based on what they're reading within those OEM procedures. You've got parts coordination, so somebody that's got a high degree of knowledge or can be trained, you know, in terms of parts procurement. Again, investment in that training. You know, a production manager as well, right? And I'd agree with Taylor in terms of, hey, maybe it's not the person you think it should be in terms of putting those people in those roles. You know, from there, I would say, then you take a look at the technology tools. You know, what's my scan tool you know, for pre and post scan calibration? You know, where am I getting my OEM repair procedures? And there's a lot of great solutions out there for sure. But ensuring that, you know, through that training, through that investment in those tools are being utilized to the fullest extent, right? It's difficult to think about investments when, you know, you don't have the opportunity to build a brand new shop. You know, you've got a footprint that you've got to play within. But I think there's some investment in terms of just infrastructure. Where am I going to do the repair planning? Where am I going to do the tear down? Where am I going to do the part staging? All of those sort of things. Racking. I mean, you know, whole mess of things that kind of go into ensuring that process that you put in place is repeatable, sustainable, and again, you've got the right people and the right jobs.
Okay. John, you have something to add around investing in the shop around repair planning.
Not so much investing in a shop, but just to reiterate back what Kyle said, is the challenges that we're having is on the third-party payers not recognizing our damage report. Our damage report is the actual process to how the car is going to be repaired, not what they're providing on an estimate side. And that's one of the things that we're trying to say and we're advocating for in this industry, that they are not professionals, they're not certified, and we're providing the right documentation on how this car is going to be fixed. And I really like a lot what Kyle said in reference that we do not accept these estimates, we're providing the proper plan. And in the challenges as far as equipment is concerned, boy, I've got a good one on that. I've done a very great job as far as retooling our shop with the latest equipment that's there. Coupling that with education has made it so much easier and efficient for us to provide a good quality repair.
Okay, good. Hey, Taylor, I'm going to turn it over to you and ask specifically, again, with your background, it's around what is the best way that you have seen to validate as-built build data?
The best way to validate as-built build data?
Yeah.
That is a tricky one. I think there's a lot of confusion out there in the marketplace, even among the consumers on the car, right? So the OEs, when they sell a car, they have different trim packages and options on those vehicles. Where do we get that data? At OEC, we had some of that build data, but we didn't really expose that out to the marketplace. And I can honestly say, like, I don't know if there's a great source for it. I think CCC is getting better at exposing some of that build data out there, but I don't know if there's truly a good source that can tell you verifiably, like, what's on this car versus what's not. If someone else knows better than me, you may, but I have not seen a great source for that. OEC, we had some of the data because we were part owned by some of the manufacturers, but exposing that data would be massively beneficial, right? And I think that's one of the weakest areas in any of the shop ecosystem today, of just like knowing what's on a vehicle and what's not. And that's one of the things that I hear consistently from insurers. Insurers are struggling really badly right now to understand like what calibrations are needed on a vehicle and what are not, just from a like, does this car have this piece of ADAS equipment or not, right? And because they don't have people in the shops anymore, they're not able to verify these things. They have lesser training on those things. So that becomes a big challenge. So using some sort of a tool to verify one, that vehicle has that kind of equipment, and I think one of the best ways is like either the owner's manual of the vehicle or just a photo of like there is a radar on this car, right? Or there is a windshield camera on this car, and then being able to pull up those calibration procedures from your research tool is a really critical way to verify this needs to be done. And the calibrations vary a lot, right? Like some calibrations might be static, right, and need a lot more target setup and time and set conditions and things like that, whereas others might be dynamic and just need a test drive at certain conditions. And just like you're not going to pay the same amount for the same amount of time, like what you actually do in the calibration matters, right?
Yeah, and since you brought it up, you talking about targeting, and I'm going to ask John, where do you involve ADAS in your repair planning?
Right at the beginning, when we do our DTC codes, we verify where the nature of the accident happened or point of impact, what exactly is going to be required within that given area, and also checking for indirect damage in the case that there might be a sensor in the rear of the car. That is put together at the initial inspection when we are looking at the vehicle.
And Kyle, I see you're nodding your head around that same question, please.
Yeah, I think the thing about being consistently great is you got to do the same thing over and over again. And so for us, part of our blueprinting process, if you will, every single vehicle that comes through our facility, we pre-measure the suspension. We found that the alignment plays such a critical role in the calibrations as well. And there are, in fact, many OEMs that once the alignment's triggered, calibrations have to be done. So it's just like John said, it's done on the front end. But really, when you're talking about blueprinting, you want as much possible information as you possibly can have on the front end. So if you're able to pre-measure the unibody, pre-measure the suspension, pre-scan the vehicle, all that is just more information or ammunition for that blueprint at that point in time.
And obviously that helps decrease supplements at the end of the day. So I guess, John, back to you, and then maybe I'll go on, do you see a day where estimates completely disappear?
If you have it our way, absolutely. Okay, simply because we're giving them the information ahead of time to truly justify how the car is going to be repaired. So therefore, that guesstimate, as we refer to, and that's how Kyle put it, I'm in the same way, is that doesn't solidify what the shop actually has to perform. By providing these type of plans and being direct, I do see that in the future coming up to where the third-party payers are going to rely on these quality shops to provide that type of information. And if they're wise to listen to what we're doing, they could see their cycle times drop drastically when they allow the shop to do their job. Okay. And I think that's going to be a valid point in the future for us to secure that and see the estimates go to the wayside.
Okay, and George, I'm going to ask you a question again around technology, specifically around automation. How do you see automation fitting into repair planning?
Yeah, I think automation is something that's just going to continue to proliferate. I think as AI moves forward and gets better and better and more accurate, I think you'll just see that advance quicker and quicker and quicker. We're already seeing it today, and I think again it's really about making sure that you're putting your team in the best possible position, right, so that they can repair a car safely. There's just so much data that's being ingested and then manifesting itself into that automation now, and like I said, it'll just continue to get better and better and better. Back to the ADAS question as well. I'll just piggyback on top of that. Agree 100%. Manufacturers, from my perspective, need to do a better job of making sure that build data is available. In lieu of that, I would tell you that our approach is just making sure that we're, through our ADAS quick reference guide, that we're at least identifying, hey, these are all of the things that could be on that vehicle. So what that forces, again, is kind of that process piece. What's your game plan as you do that repair plan? What's your process? And making sure that you're following those steps of the process to ensure that you're not missing a calibration or a safety item or something along those lines.
Thanks, George. Taylor, I guess I'm going to put you on the spot. Have you ever seen anything that you've in your research yourself that does not work in repair planning?
In what way? Like having the people do the planning, or
and then it does not. Let's say they don't follow it, or they don't, use the process that's been established.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think looking at repair procedures, I've looked at thousands and thousands of repair procedures. Every manufacturer structures theirs a little bit differently, right? So at Repair Logic, we wanted to try and standardize all of that so you can get at the information the same way each time. And that's been very, very helpful. Like we have a 3D model that you can click on and get to the right data. But for example, like Nissan doesn't do the structural repairs the same way that Honda does, right? So the way they structure those documents and how they do it is very different. So a lot of times there's still some familiarity that you need with these procedures and training from the manufacturer to actually understand, okay, I can get this kind of information from Nissan about how to do structural repairs to this frame or any of the rails on that vehicle versus that. And I think that can be a challenge for people that are just dipping their toes into this world and starting to understand, because each book or repair procedures amount on a vehicle can be tens of thousands of repair procedures for one single model. So it's a ton of data that you're looking through. As far as like challenges following the data, I think most times the data is pretty clear. I know a lot of people get hung up on the word recommended versus required a lot, and we could debate all day on that. From what I hear from the OEMs, recommended means required. So that's our kind of stance there. And at Quality, our stance is really like, we are going to follow that repair procedure and do the repair the right way. Then after that, it becomes a business decision with your partners of like how that bill gets paid, right? We need to do this item. It's going on our estimate. We are doing it. Whether that's 0 hours or 1 hour or some payment for that, doesn't matter. Like, we want to do things the right way and make sure the customer knows that they're getting back in that vehicle and that we followed all the repair procedures for that vehicle. And that's critical today because, those things matter, and then someday that vehicle might crash again. You still want that Toyota to be a Toyota, not a Toyota. Now it's a custom from, one of our shops, right?
Right. So, you talked and you mentioned the word consistency. So, Kyle, I'm going to ask you, what do you think are the top 3 to 5 benefits that you see top of your head that help drive that consistency for repair planning from a beneficent standpoint?
Yeah, well, I think number one, and we've hit on it, but it's really about implementing a process. It's really hard to get consistent results when you're not following the same game plan and running the same play every time. I'm a big sports guy, so if it's 4th and 1 and I want to run the ball and my offensive line is pass setting, like that's a problem, right? And so I think that happens in collision shops every day. I think there's, depending on, if John and I are working alongside each other as colleagues, John's doing something his way and I'm doing something my way, and that's not consistency at that point in time. So for us, I think everything really starts with that. It's like a defined process for how you want to do things.
Okay.
And if the process isn't followed, then we really got to go back to square one and figure out, where the breakdown was. And, I know you asked for a list of 3 to 5, but I'm just a really big believer on that number one. And I firmly believe that if you do that, everything else falls into place. It really does. And so that's just been my experience. Now, obviously, limited experience, but
that's great. But I'm going to put you on the spot and at least get 2. All right. So, John, same question is, what do you see as additional benefits?
One process gives us consistency no matter what make or model the car is.
Okay.
And that itself, by having that in place, has made it very consistent for us to do a quality, safe repair. And just being repetitive, as we talked earlier about that. That car comes in, it gets blueprinted. We have the ability, we send it right to our alignment center. We do a pre-alignment check. Now we know that the unibody has been compromised. We have a 3D measuring system. We're going to do that measurement. that is exact on every make and model that's there that shows that type of damage is evident, that process doesn't change, whether it's a Chevy, whether it's a Ford, and that consistency has kept us consistent on our repair process. So now that's a little repetitive, you know, like what Kyle was saying, but the point is that that estimate, it disappeared. We're doing a proper plan.
So, man.
So I think too, having some time to reflect on it now,
So it's 1st and 10 now.
it's first. Yeah, we got the first down. We may have scored, may have cashed. So I think one of the really important things that I think too is it creates trust and transparency with the consumer, and creates a better experience. And I'll give you an example. If Mark, you drive your Porsche, the 911 that you have, you drive it to the shop, and you know, hey, this is the damage. I'll tell you,
Wrong brand.
Mark. Sorry, Mark, it's going to be $1,000 to fix it, right?
Yeah.
You heard $1,000.
Yeah.
We get into the vehicle, and now we discover additional damage, and Mark, sorry, bad news. Now it's 15,000.
Yeah.
What kind of idiot do you think that I am at that point in time, right? And so I think just being transparent on the front end and explaining the difference between an estimate and a repair plan.
So let me ask this question, and this is going to be for all four of you. So Taylor and George, you'll have time to think about the question, but it's my bonus question. Is do you think, Kyle, John, Taylor, George, that the repair plan should be shared with the consumer?
100%.
So Kyle, why don't you start, and then you guys can give your...
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. We explain it as a detailed story on really what's happening to the vehicle from the time it arrives at the facility to the time it leaves. And if you're a customer, most people, that's their second largest investment. If I'm performing open heart surgery, you're not just going into the doctor and be like, hey, fix me. Like, you know what I'm saying? And we see a mix. There's customers who care in great detail about what we're doing. And then there's others like, hey, I trust you guys, but we're still providing that to them. Yeah, for sure.
John?
Corvette, got the model right. We'll take in consideration that we're going to have Mark's car come into our shop. Okay. What we'd like to do is we'd like to go ahead and schedule that time with the insurance company when they're coming out. I'm inviting Mark. What I've done is I made it so much easier on the blueprinting process that we identify everything that's wrong with that car in no uncertain terms and made it very clear this is how that car is going to be repaired. Now, we're talking $150,000 E-Ray Corvette. So under them circumstances, when I invite that client over with this type of inspection, we just reassure that client, now we are going to do it right for you in no uncertain terms. But it makes it so much easier on the third party. Now there's no uncertainties because the consumer is there on the spot. And if there's any differences of opinion on the settlement, we send it right to the consumer. So therefore, he makes the call first before the car's done.
Thanks, John. Taylor?
Yeah, I think educating the customers, you got to remember who the customer is, right? The customer is the owner of the vehicle. If you're not educating them, you're not doing your job at all, right? Because they need to know that you have the skills, the training, the technology, the tools to fix their car properly. One of the ways I like to describe repair planning versus estimating is it's like building a house, right? You need to know how much it costs to build this house. That would be the estimate. You also need to know where the walls are going and how many materials you need for that house, right? If I were to go to Home Depot and just start buying nails and wood and concrete, like I know I need all these things, but I have no idea where they go and how much of them. The repair plan is really that blueprint of the house. And I think that's one of the reasons we use the word blueprint a lot about that. And I think sharing that with the consumer, the owner of this vehicle, builds a tremendous amount of trust, shows them a ton of transparency. And then if there is any question with the bill payer, guess who they trust more than the bill payer? They trust you, right? And they're fighting for you at that point.
Yeah, it really helps with an equity relationships. And George, if you have any comments around...
No, I would just say I agree 100%. You know, at least through our tool and our publication, from my perspective, my own personal opinion, it's just too easy to not do that for the consumer, right? The procedures are there, they exist, they're readily available, easily findable. We certainly normalize all the information so that no matter what year, make, and model, you've got access to the information that you need. Absolutely share that with the consumer.
Okay. Well said, well said. Well, I think we're at time right now. I really appreciate George, Taylor, John, and Kyle for coming up to the stage. I appreciate all the people in the audience that attended this, and thank you from ICAR, and thank you from the Refinish and Collision Stage at SEMA. Thank you.